to make a difference in how you present yourself for a career and how you find your own career. So start now to think about how you can be a good citizen of whatever professional community you want to be a part of. And if you think like that, then you can go and be better prepared than you dreamed of before. You can prepare to be knocked back as well. I've certainly had a lot more job interviews than I've had jobs in my time. I think that's probably the case for everybody. So you will get knocked back. You won't always get every job you apply for, but think of it as a learning curve. Take what you can from that and then use that to move on to the next one. You can change your careers as well. You can change your careers later on in life, but that also means that you don't necessarily have to study something that is going to be directly linked to your career. I personally studied archaeology, and I work in international student recruitment and international education now. It's not related at all. But what a good university education will do, it will give you the skill set to be able to apply that learning and apply certain skills to any career. Plus, a lot of top companies like Pricewaterhouse, Deloitte, for example, they all have graduate recruitment schemes. So I'm rushing on a little bit over these parts because I know we've spent a lot of time already, but here are 7 ways that you can help to market yourself for a career. And think about yourself as a product when you're thinking about these sorts of things, and how you would want to put yourself across to the audience that you're trying to sell yourself. So the first one, identify your USP. This is a marketing terminology that you might or might not know. It's selling points. So this is what makes you different to everybody else who's out there. So what are your interests? Think about those. Think about what your talents are. Think about what your passions are, and really think and really learn to know yourself. It can be difficult when you're younger to kind of have that knowledge of yourself. So it's been useful to ask friends and they think some of your stronger points would be, because it might be that they've noticed something you never really noticed before. You might come across to them the way that you think you come across. So get that feedback from people you know and see how that matches up with your own knowledge of yourself as well. But once you've kind of identified those things about you, these are your unique selling points. This is what you want to try and get across to potential employers and potential universities and things like that. Also identify your target audience as well. So if you're looking at a particular career, a particular company for a job, learn about that employer inside out. So before you go to an interview, learn as much as you can about that company's ethos, about their organization, and about the sort of skills and people that they value highly. If you look at a job advert, then job adverts will have a person specification with them, and this really is just a list of the person that they want, so you can see exactly the sort of thing that they're looking for, and you can use that to match up with what your skill sets are. Keep your finger on the pulse, so keep up to date with different things that are happening within the industry you're interested in. If you are interested in a particular field, then you'll probably do this anyway. I mean, I know that in my spare time, I always read things in the on the BBC News website and in Times Higher about education and about international education. And I find myself naturally doing this because it's something that I'm interested in. So if you are interested in a particular career, you'll probably do this naturally, but it is a good way to kind of keep yourself ahead, keep yourself up to date with any sort of trends that might be happening, and this information will always come in useful when it comes to job interviews and showing that you've got an interest in a particular field. The other thing to do as well is to develop your elevator pitch, and what this is it's a very short speech that gives some insight into your background and your experience, and tells the person that you're speaking to a little bit about the type of job that you want to go into. You can use your elevator speech if you go to a networking event or social occasions or career fairs or anything like that. Any chance there is to introduce yourself to a potential employer or somebody who can potentially help you network, this is when it gives you the opportunity to do your elevator pitch. And what you do is you identify your USPs. You think about what you want to get across. What's the key message that you're going to say in this 60 seconds? You make it interesting and enthusiastic and mainly natural about yourself as well. And then draft it, redraft it, edit it, write it again, and then practice saying it. So when you're in that social situation or that networking situation, you have a pre-prepared introduction for yourself, saying who you are and what sort of thing you're looking to try and achieve and want to do. And that's going to kind of be key. And again, you'll use that as an introduction to interviews as well, which we'll talk a little bit about later. Now, the next 3 points are all interlinked. So be web savvy and so be social. Networking yourself to kind of promote yourself. So make sure that you're doing that in a way that is focused on using these things productively as well. So spend focused time on social media and on LinkedIn, things like that, to do things like building your own networks. Create a network of people that are like-minded to you, that you can kind of get to know each other and exchange opinions and expertise in. So you build that community both online and both in person as well. When you're part of this community, try and be of service to others as well. It's not just take. Think about things that you can do that ultimately will help you progress in your career as well. So maybe that could be helping people out from the voluntary sector or non-profit sector. Maybe you can just be giving advice to people as well. You can become in many ways, you can become a trusted advisor in your particular field of work. Show your wisdom as well. So show people what you know about a particular thing. Write about it and post any kind of information, as long as it's well written and timed and effective. And if you're using those things about, what we said about using the right sort of social networks and internet experience, keeping yourself up to date, these kind of things that you write can be really helpful to sort of build your career a little bit more. Also importantly as well, fish where the fish are. So don't just apply for jobs and attend networking events indiscriminately. Target places that you want to go and you see your career path going. So maybe you could do something like list a group of companies that you would like to work for, and then you can deliberately go and look on their job boards specifically, rather than just kind of looking for any jobs. Or you can go to the areas that they are, and that might mean even physically going to the areas that they are and relocating as well. But join professional groups that are relevant to your particular industry, and join networking groups that are relevant to your industry as well. So there's kind of some ideas about how, if you're thinking of yourself as a product, that you will be able to sort of start to market and promote yourself. Now, CVs and applications as well. So most of the time, the first thing that an employer will see about you will be your CV or your application. So it's important that you get the basics of it right. So a CV should include your contact information. It should include your qualifications, work history and experience, relevant skills to the job that you got. It should have your interests, achievements, and hobbies, and some references. You need to get all of that, and it needs to be succinct into no more than 2 pages. The important thing as well is once you've got the template for that, you can tailor the CV to the job that you're applying for. So again, you look at the job description that's available and you match that up with the skills that you've got and highlight those ones on your CV. Show a bit of personality in your CV as well. You know, it's not just that you're a group of skills or a group of academic achievements. You know, your interests and passions and your personality are what binds that all together into a more well-rounded package. So make sure you kind of demonstrate a little bit of that too in your CVs and on your applications. Make the most of the skills and experience that you have. So what you'll try to do is think about the skills that you've had and demonstrate those in a way that's relevant to the job application. So you will see on a job specification where it says team working skills may be necessary. So think about any times that you've worked in a team at school or at a sports team or something like that, that you can then show that in your CV to demonstrate those team working skills. Try to use assertive language as well. So whenever you are writing your CV or your job application, make it, and this also goes for personal statements for universities as well, if you ever have to write one of those, make it so that you're the one who's controlling these things. You your skills, or you've taken active role in the things that have been going on around you. You haven't just passively watched them and these things have happened to you. You're the one who's been in control of it. And that sort of positive language really helps get a good message about you across. Similar for your interests as well. Like, as I said, try and make the most of your interests and try and include things that you've been actively engaged in. And it may not be something that's immediately obvious to you, but if you think about something like maybe you've been a member of your school's chess club. I don't know whether schools have chess clubs nowadays, but if you've done something like that, then that can show good problem solving skills. If you've been on a school newspaper, then you know that's good writing skills and good communication skills. If you've achieved anything, if you've won any awards, that shows a good level of determination that you can tie in, or any kind of like part-time work or experience as well. So even something that you like, something like babysitting, and that shows an employer that you would be a very responsible person. But try and take these things, apply it to the career and the job that you're looking for, and think about how it's been of benefit to you. So in that kind of section, try and make yourself sound really interesting. So that's a bit about CVs and interviews, CVs and job applications. And if that's done properly, we'll go on to the interview section. And this can be a really intimidating section for the job. It can be quite scary going to an interview for the first time. You know, I think everybody naturally gets very nervous before interviews. So there's a few things that you can do to help yourself along as best you can when it comes to that, and when it comes to those interviews. The first thing is to practice the questions that you might get asked. You can go online and you can find a whole range of interview questions that might get asked, and you can take some of these and you can practice writing out your answers. A lot of websites have model answers as well. So some things you'll always get asked are, you know, tell me about yourself, or introduce yourself to me. This is where you kind of use your elevator pitch. But sometimes you might get something a little bit different from that. You know, so I once at a job interview, the person said to me, "Right, tell me something about yourself, but I don't want to hear anything that you've already written on your CV or anything that you've got that you put in the application, because I already know that about you. So think about those things as well. You might get asked, why are you interested in the job? This is a good way of you, also another option for you to be able to say why you will be good at that job as well. Not just the fact that you're interested in doing it for whatever reason. It's a good chance for you to slip in another thing about how you're going to be good at it. You might be asked what your greatest strengths are. You might be asked what your greatest weaknesses are. And when you're thinking about your greatest weaknesses, a good thing to do is to try and, having had a look at the job description, find something that's not related to the job in any way. So if you know that you're never going to have to do a presentation in your job, then you could say your weakness was doing presentations, for example. But if you can't think of something that's not really related to the work, then that's a good way to go about doing that. But the key thing about this really is to practice the questions, get used to talking about yourself in a way that you probably never have before. At the end of the interview as well, one thing you can do is you can go and write down the questions that you were asked. You can think about them later and think about how you might approach them next time you get asked them. And if you do that at the end of every job interview you have, you'll probably have quite a good stock of questions that you can then refer to later on throughout other job interviews or other careers. Now, your skills are important. The way you present yourself is important as well. So you will be judged on your appearance in interviews. So dress appropriately for the role. Try and look smart and try and look like you're like you actually trying to do the job well. Think about, different shampoos you've seen, again, to think about yourself as a product. Think about the different packaging on things, how that makes you think about a different product, and then apply that to yourself as well. But of course, in addition to being dressed smartly, you need to be able to project confidence. So using your non-verbal cues, eye contact, hand motion, and your posture are critical in giving a sense of confidence about you as well. Use anecdotes and examples. So in interviews, you'll be asked questions like, can you give me an example of when you've done this? Or can you give me an example of something you've done really well, or something that hasn't worked so well? If you ever get questions like that where something hasn't gone well, then also try and say how you got out of that situation, how you improved that situation. But use the anecdotes and use examples. And this is to sort of qualify your achievements. So rather than just telling people that you're a hard worker, you need to be able to use those anecdotes, use those examples to demonstrate why you're a hard worker as well. So the relevant stories are really going to highlight and show your skills, rather than you just saying, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. These stories and these anecdotes, they're what's actually going to make people realize that this is true. At the end of every interview, you're normally given the option to ask questions. This is an opportunity for you to find out a little bit more, something that hasn't necessarily been covered in the interview. And asking a good question at an interview, it demonstrates that you've thought about the job and you've done research as well, and that you're interested. So if there's some examples that you can find online as well, but it's a good chance for you to demonstrate that you're actually interested in the job and the career and the company. So have a think about some before you go along. Maybe make a list of 5 or so, and some could be about the kind of interview process as well. Feel free to ask, when will I hear back about this, or when are you looking for somebody to start this role, as well as something about the company itself. And that kind of normally is the last thing in how an interview concludes. So there's some kind of ways, tips to help yourself in an interview. They're just some of the things. There are other ways that you will be assessed for jobs as well. So that assessment, you may be assessment centres where you go to a particular centre and you're tested in a variety of different ways. You can do things like psychometric